Hi everyone, and welcome to another Seraphim Space live webinar. Sorry for the slightly delayed start for those who are waiting to join us, but today I'm pleased to welcome two of our team from our accelerator. We have Alexander, who is the newest managing director and based in the UK, and we have Ellie, who is Generation Space Manager and currently over in the US. Hi guys, thanks for joining me today.
Hi Leah, and thanks so much for having us.
We are here today as everyone's waiting, as we have announced the awesome companies from our Mission 14 cohort. This coincides with an impressive milestone as the Accelerator alumni have now collectively raised over 500 million in funding, which is fantastic news for the over 100 companies currently in the alumni. As always, we're going to run this as a little Q&A for the guys, but we always love to have questions from the audience. So if you have anything to ask, please post it in the chat and we can get to it at the end. But I'm sure you're all waiting to hear more, so I'll go straight over to Alexander. Hi, Alexander, before we get to the cohorts, let's begin about talking about the fact that the alumni have collectively raised this massively impressive amount. Can you tell everyone a little bit more about what that milestone means for the program and how it reflects the broader growth of the space industry today?
Absolutely, Leah, and it's great to be here on my first live webinar for Seraphim Space. So yes, we've achieved a major milestone with participating alumni collectively raising over 500 million, so $541 million in investment. And the significance of this milestone is it shows that growing investor confidence in the space sector's potential and proves in the program's pivotal role in identifying and accelerating high growth ventures. But it goes beyond the accelerator, because if you look at the Seraphim Space portfolio, our venture fund, in which we've invested in 10 companies, have raised over 1.28 billion. And you go wider yet, and in our investment trust, so that's our listed fund, companies have raised 4.6 billion. So it just shows how the space sector is one of the most resilient sectors, evidenced by 4 consecutive quarters of investment recovery. And if you look at our quarterly index, the Seraphim Space Index, the quarter stats show that 2.41 billion has been invested, a very slight increase from the previous quarter's 2.39 billion. So that brings the total investment for the past 12 months to 8.5 billion. You see, so from these small acorns, these mighty oak trees grow in terms of the companies we started Accelerator and then come through the venture and then the listed funds.
Thanks for that, Alexander. Yeah, that's absolutely great to hear. And thank you for the little plug on our index. We'll actually be releasing our next index very shortly. So watch this space. It's coming up in the next few days. So I hope everyone's excited to find out more on that. And as Alexander said, yeah, we'll see that we've seen incredibly strong interest from investors in early stage companies, which is great news for the alumni and obviously the 14 members of this new cohort. So thanks for that, Alexander. Thanks for those figures. Alexander, back to you. The program has another fantastic stat, has supported over 100 alumni across 29 different countries. How does having such a diverse cohort from so many regions impact the dynamics of the accelerator and generally the global space tech ecosystem?
Absolutely. Well, I've always been a believer that the more diverse the company, the better the product it makes. So if you scale it up to an accelerator program, that diversity, 109 companies across 29 countries, helps to cultivate a more interconnected network of partnerships, ideas, and talent. And that in turn creates a lot more opportunities for participating startups. And certainly my experience of running global scaling programs is that if you provide that platform for networking, you create the opportunities for cross-border collaboration. And I'm always on the lookout for that company-to-company collaboration, as it demonstrates that sort of complementary nature of the cohort. I think the other aspect is that startups bring a regional expertise like regulation, market needs, etc., on a regional, local basis. And that essentially educates not only the cohort, but the wider accelerator ecosystem. And that all contributes to this body of knowledge within the ecosystem, which helps accelerate the adoption of technologies and ultimately, for our point of view, leads to more investment in the sector.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Actually, that's just made me think of an amazing alumni company called Amini, who I know you know well, Ellie, who we had on the webinar once, who just explained how they just understand the intricacy of the African market, and just other companies can't quite do that. And it's just so important to have these different diverse figures from all over the world. So, I mean, I know Ellie can really lead on to the next question, which is for Ellie. From a community perspective, how important is it to grow this global network for the companies, in the ways of diversity, community, and culture, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to second what Alex just said. I think one of the best things about the program is, that knowledge and experience and connections which the startups themselves can share with each other. Some of them are experienced founders, some are not, some have raised funding, some have not. So really, it's that cross-pollination of experience and cultures, which helps to basically create more opportunities for them and build that strong community, which we then foster through our alumni network as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. And I think anyone has an alumni quite like ours, so it's absolutely great to see that growing every year. Right,
yeah,
I think
absolutely. We have over 100 companies now in that network.
Wonderful, fantastic. Right, so I think what everyone's waiting to hear, there was a press release released earlier today, but Ellie and Alexandra are going to go through and reveal who the 14 companies are and give you a little bit of insight on who they are and what they do.
Yeah, so we have 11 companies actually, and I'm very pleased to announce who they are. So I'll go through the list briefly, but as Leah mentioned, the full list is already posted across the channels, so please check them out. Starting with our hardware solutions, we have Forge 3D, who do 3D printing for the metal manufacturing industry. We have Rovio, who are pioneering AI-enabled robotics for orbital assembly. And we have SpaceLS, who are working on ultralight, flexible, and bendable solar cell tech, which is really cool. In the AI and machine learning space, we have Manufacture AI, who are working on a platform which integrates real-time data from factory floors, and using AI is optimizing that process and the cost and speed of scaling hardware. We have Flypix, who through their platform are making it easy for anyone without specialist training to identify and analyze geospatial images. Planetary Space Systems Corporation, who are analyzing and contextualizing the vast amount of space data, which both commercial and government bodies are producing, thus allowing for better decision making. And Tiami Networks, who integrate advanced AI and radar technology with 5G networks to create safer, smarter, and more efficient connectivity. And finally, in our constellation/Earth observation group, we have Aquara, who are providing advanced water management solutions. Artemis, who are delivering scalable biodiversity monitoring. And Constellation Technologies, who are building a disruptive broadband constellations. And finally, StarSat, who are developing a constellation of star and optical satellites for real-time insights, and who are specifically targeting the MENA market. And that's our 11 companies.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ellie. And if anyone has any questions on those companies for Ellie, please post them in the chat and she'll be happy to answer them at the end. Or this will also be, you can watch this post live and you can continue to ask questions to the team. But we'll dive deeper. Alexander, this year's cohort features 7 different countries, including new additions from Saudi Arabia, Chile, and Turkey. Why do you think we are seeing so many new regions being involved, and why is this exciting for the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. More and more countries are recognizing that strategic importance of space tech. The impact that it has and what it will continue to have on the world. And only a few years, we've moved from, say, 40 nations having a space strategy to over 90 nations. So, governments are waking up to the importance of this sector. And that in turn often leads to industry investment. So, if you look at X-Tech, so that's just disruptive technology for, say, whether it's GovTech or climate tech or our domain, space tech, this is about disruptive technology within a particular sector. And that's the interesting thing about space tech. It's no longer a niche vertical. It's a horizontal industry revolutionizing numerous sectors, defense, climate, logistics, etc. So, and in that sense, if we think about innovation, so from Turkey and Saudi Arabia, we can never be blinkered as to where innovation comes from. It can come from anywhere in the world. And I suppose that we as global investors need to be alert to that. It's also worth noting that a number of these have had academic heritage. So it shows that universities are waking up to the commercialization opportunity of this sector. And that's why, this global growth coming not just from the likes of kind of US and Europe, but many, many countries far beyond what we'd normally consider in our innovation stable. That's why this industry will become a $1.8 trillion industry by 2035.
Thank you, Alexander. Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating and wonderful to hear. Ellie, the new cohort includes companies focused on key areas like data analytics, Earth observation, and advanced manufacturing. What trends are you noticing in regards to sector representation from the cohort this year? And from cohort to cohort, actually. That would be interesting.
Yeah, so to be honest, each cohort is quite different because we always base our selection on the quality of the applicants which we receive. However, the exciting thing about the program is that naturally it allows us to explore slightly earlier stage propositions than we normally would. So we're seeing a lot of applicants from what we call Space 3.0, which is that next phase of market growth, which is focused around space infrastructure, orbit servicing, in-orbit computing, etc. And we're starting to see even more from Space 4.0 even, which is all about making use of space resources, such as solar energy.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. Some companies that people would, absolute science fiction, as we say, turning into science fact. So we're loving to see these companies that are coming from all over the world with these amazing ideas. Alexander, back to you. This week, also coincidentally, it's World Space Week, which we're obviously celebrating. And this theme this year is climate change. Are there any companies in this cohort that particularly embody this notion, or anyone notable from the alumni that really fits this bill?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and again, as Ellie was pointing out, there is this trend in this space. And if you think about, what we're launching as satellites in many respects, this is about Earth observation, and in that sense, climate change is the obvious marker, should we say, in what we can measure from space. So, just to pick out a couple of companies there, Acora. So they're focusing on sustainable access to water for all. So what they're doing is they're looking using various AI and machine learning tools, taking satellite data and helping utility and mining companies improve their infrastructure, which then in turn saves natural resources and allows more investment in conservation. And Artemis is helping organizations make better decisions by providing quantifiable biodiversity reporting. And what I like particularly about these two companies, female founders. So again, promoting that sort of gender piece where, again, think back to the history of my background in GovTech and getting as many female founders into these tech businesses. And so I'm really supportive of that. But there was a huge energy about this cohort. You walk in and day one, they are all so passionate and committed in what they're aiming to do. And that's what makes these accelerators so exciting. So you feed off that energy and you then watch them grow. And if you think about then past alumni, so a particular alumnus to note about in this conservation space is Constellar, who measure water, temperature, and carbon to assess vegetation and soil health. And they've already raised 35 million. So, it's an interesting space. And I have a personal interest in this area, having taken global cohorts of climate tech companies to the previous 3 UNFCCC COPs. So that was in Glasgow, in Sharm el Sheikh, and then Dubai last year. And as we look ahead to COP30 in Brazil in little over a year's time, there'll be even more focus in this area.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic to see. And one notable that sprung to my mind is obviously Sat Vu, who Anthony Baker is a good friend to us, and he's been on this webinar several times, which this has been fabulous for me. They're obviously the company known as the thermometer in the sky, and they're Reg Therma data used for testing and analysing thermal emissions on Earth from space, which is hugely important. So we have so many notable companies, but thank you for picking out those new ones, and I can't wait to hear more. It sounds super exciting. Ellie, back to you. Looking back at previous cohorts, there's been obviously so many success stories, as we just touched on. For example, like Zona Space Systems. I think they've raised 19 million now, which is super exciting for them. What does seeing that mean for the other companies who are going through the accelerator?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many companies that have done incredibly well. So I'll only mention a few here. Zona, who you just mentioned, they have created the first high-performance alternative to GPS. So they closed a 19 million round earlier this year, which is incredible. Other examples, which we just talked about, so we have SatView. They obviously do thermal imaging. They've raised, I believe, around 20 million. And also more recent examples like Amini, who we mentioned earlier, who are part of Mission 11. So they're focusing on providing data for the African continent, and they've had some great traction recently. But in terms of kind of what that means for future cohorts, I hope seeing that success motivates them. And I'll definitely advise them to listen to feedback, to make the most of the 12 weeks that they have with us, to attend sessions, connect with these other founders who they have access to, and show initiative, because ultimately they're the ones who are driving their company forward. But yeah, in summary, I hope they find that very motivating and inspiring.
Most definitely, and just having these amazing mentors, it's just so crucial for these people. Just having the ability just to reach out to these people through our networks and say, hey, can I drop you an email? I think it's absolutely wonderful that they get the ability to do that by joining the accelerator. It's great. Alexander, back to you. As everyone knows, or maybe not, but the accelerator collaborates strongly with corporate partners, and it's super important, for the companies and for the accelerator to do this. Companies like Dentons, ESA, KPMG, and many others. Could you elaborate on these particular partnerships and why they are essential to the success of your cohorts?
Absolutely. One of the indicators of an effective accelerator is looking at the breadth and depth of its partners and how these partners help our companies build better products and scalable companies. And Seraphim Space Accelerator is no exception. So if you think about our service partners, which are helping our companies build better companies, so the likes of Dentons, they've taken up their patents, and tax structures advice, or the likes of KPMG, who ran an excellent full day scaling workshop on day 3 of our accelerator. These are helping our companies be better as companies. And then you think about our corporate partners. So the likes for in both aerospace industry or environment. These are valuable mentorships who provide that technical expertise. So they're helping create solutions which are what the actual industry actually wants. And there's also a supply chain angle. These corporate partners can help our companies navigate bureaucratic procurement processes. And as someone who's come from government, this is an area that I'm particularly interested in. And then, of course, you've got the agencies. So these are the kind of UK Space Agency, European Space Agency. These are the government agencies charged with growing the sector. And it's important to have them absolutely as part of this mix. And we absolutely value those relationships we have with them. And those are doorways into government and the wider public sector. So these partners help open doors. They connect startups to the wider ecosystem. And when you're on that scaling journey, you need all the help you can get.
Yeah, thank you, Alexander. Exactly right. Again, it's just having access to these big players, which you people may not have the ability to do that. So it's wonderful to be able to give them that opportunity. And this is constantly growing, aren't they? We're constantly looking for new sponsors and anyone else who wants to be involved. So drop us a line on that. Well, I think that's all the questions from me. So thanks to you both for joining me today, and thank you for everyone who listened. As you all know, this is recorded live, so excuse any slight internet connectivity issues we may have had, but the guys will be happy to answer any questions on the alumni. You can post them on our LinkedIn page, and they can get to them on the past post live. Alexander, I know there's something you wanted to mention about what's coming up in the program, because we're running the program right now. So please let everyone know.
Lovely, Leah. Thank you. And just to say, I'm new in the door here, and just to give a massive shout out to Ellie and Alex and Ida in my accelerator team. They've done a brilliant job in putting this cohort together. And as we look forward to the next phase of the program, which is in LA, when we get to meet a number of our networks and partners over there, and then back to London for our final event. So we'll be hosting an Insights Day on the 26th of November. This is an exclusive invitation-only event. We'll be inviting partners to meet the cohort in person. And then, of course, we'll have our Investor Showcase Day a week later. But there's another bit I wanted to mention, and that is that if you think about Seraphim Space's reach as a whole, that we see 75% of the global deal flow in early stage space technology. So essentially, we are the #1 partner investor of choice. People come to us to either lead the investments, be partners in the investments, or really just sense check. And that means we see a lot of what's going on in this space. In fact, we see 3/4 of it. So we're developing a new insights tool, and that will help governments and corporations understand the impact of space on their economies and also their operations. So with that breadth of data that we see, we know what's happening, we know where it's happening, and most importantly, what the impact is that is going to be, not least for humanity as a whole, not just in areas such as sustainability, as we discussed earlier, and defense, but also finance, insurance, logistics, and health, to name a few. And that's why we and our partners are driving that message that space is no longer a niche vertical, but a horizontal industry. So watch this space, excuse the pun, and we will be demonstrating our power and data in this area very soon. So do email me, Alexander at seraphim.vc, if you want to find out more about it. So Leah, thank you very much. Ellie, thank you for your time on this. Great to be on this first of many webinars we'll be doing. So yes, thank you.
Thank you both, and thank you.
Leah, thank you both. Great way to end. Oh yeah, Leah, I just wanted to add one more thing before we wrap up.
Cool.
Like Alex mentioned, we have a few events coming up. So we will be in LA on the 13th of November. And we'll be posting about the upcoming events across our channels in the next couple of weeks. So if people do want to come and meet the cohort, or if they do want to get involved, whether that's as a mentor, as an investor, or as a corporate partner, please keep an eye out. We'll obviously be reaching out to people individually, but we'll also be posting about events on our social media channels. So yeah, we look forward to meeting more of that community in LA.
Thank you so much, Ellie. And it's so great to see people posting where they're watching from Quebec, Singapore, Los Angeles. So I'm so thrilled. And yeah, as we say, any questions you have, post them on our LinkedIn and we can get back to you this week whenever you need. So take care. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And thanks, guys.